You in this battle, man, I'll soon be dead. I'll glue your face to my dick so I can fuck with your head. I got metaphors coming through my pores. You probably never been in a battle before, so I hope you realize your mistake. There ain't no party, got some candles, this won't be a piece of cake.
Oh, way down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators, run away, come away, run away, come away. Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles. Run away, come away, run away, come away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam. Away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie. Folks, welcome to the 4 Hours Podcast, an internet radio phenomenon hosted by an occasional morning person. I ask the most interesting people I know about their sleep, their routine, life, love, stress, and setbacks, and whatever else comes to mind. Write to us at the 4 Hours Podcast at gmail.com. But for now, friend, comedian, and fellow history buff, as you just heard, Brooks Tawil. How you doing, Brooks?
I'm doing fantastic, Bobby. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I thought of you immediately when I was like, I got to book a guest. And I was like, well, only one person has come up to me after a set and referenced the Union Civil War classic song, Union Dixie.
It is an absolute banger. I recommend listening to it. My first exposure to it was, as in many things, via meme. Someone had taken a Union soldier drinking a giant gallon of Confederate tears and then overlaid the trap version of the song.
Oh, it's so good.
With amazing beats and some great bass. And I was like, this is so cool. What's the actual song? And I then went down a meme hole of just Confederate crying memes. And it turned into a great Saturday at 2 a.m. It was fantastic.
If you could go back in time and explain to a Union soldier, there's this meme based on a song that you sing, there would be so much information you have. So you're like, okay, first of all, there's the internet.
Right.
And the internet is like the telegraph, but there's pornography on it.
And people pay a lot of money for the pornography. And I feel like that he would understand. But if I were to go back in time, my first instance would basically just think of it as like a newspaper propaganda, be like, look what old Tom Timmy wrote. And I just draw out the picture and it would be, you know, the funny meme basically in slide framed form. He might not understand the value of impact font, but I would imagine he would still laugh at it.
Hell yeah, dude. Rebel Tears is the funniest. There's a whole subreddit called Sherman Posting. Are you familiar?
I'm unfamiliar, but I want to be familiar.
So William Tecumseh Sherman, who did the March to the Sea. And for those unfamiliar, the March to the Sea was basically, winding up the Civil War. And I think the Sherman quote, he's a Union general, and I think the quote from him is, war is the route our enemies chose, so I say we give them all they want. He's very quotable, dude.
Interesting.
War is hell, so I see no reason in making war longer than it has to be.
Wow. Yeah. Fire line.
Yeah, dude.
Put that in the back of my truck.
Mic drop, dude. They did the March to the Sea, which is basically like they started in Georgia and then went all the way to South Carolina, just lived off the land, and they weren't reachable by telegraph. So it was a very stressful situation for the Union command back in DC. And he lived off the land and didn't invent, but certainly popularized scorched war theory, where he's just like, well, this is a civilian's house, but it could be used as headquarters. So we do have to burn it down, you know? And so that was the March to the Sea. And then he went all the way to, I want to say...
Was it Savannah? It must have been Savannah.
Well, I know Savannah was a stop before South Carolina. I believe Savannah is the city where he reached a telegraph office and said, President Lincoln, I have a Christmas gift for you.
Which unbelievable closing line to your walk through hell of scorched earth policy is like, surprise, Lincoln, I got you something.
Merry Christmas. Although we are from the country speaking of memes, you ever see that meme of George Washington crossing the Delaware and it says America, and then on the bottom, we will kill you in your sleep on Christmas.
Oh, I have seen that one. Hessians beware, watch out.
It's so funny. Like British soldiers were like, these Americans have no honor. They're like, it's Christmas. The day war is off for today.
Yeah, I mean, even World War One, they took Christmas Day. I mean, 1 year out of the whole thing. But.
Dude, World War One, I feel like it might be the last war where the general consensus among the common people was we're just fighting on behalf of rich people. You know what I mean? Because they were like, fuck it, dude, let's all play soccer together. Like that doesn't happen in World War II. It doesn't happen in Vietnam.
I mean, a lot of the sentiment has changed. I mean, also just think of the technology, how you communicate to people. World War One, you still have those little funny propaganda posters where it's like, I want you to join the army. And it's like all these like drawn up figures that you just distribute massively. And that's the only messaging you have. Yeah. Whereas now it's like everyone can be a press officer, basically, just take a picture and write their own caption.
Oh, yeah.
So much different times. But speaking about World War One, I've been playing a fantastic video game. Okay. It's called Last Train Home. It is set in the post-World War I Russian Civil War, and you're playing as a group of Czechoslovak soldiers who make their way from Moscow to Vladivostok. Okay. And it's a fantastic game. It's a resource management game, and then there's a real-time strategy component during the missions. Fantastic game. Are you a strategy gamer by any chance?
No, I'm not a big gamer in general.
Interesting.
I mean, I'll fuck around with Tetris every once in a while.
Okay, that's as far as I go. That's hardcore. Yeah. I appreciate that one. But for anyone looking for strategy games, Last Train Home, highly recommend it. Great story, great history if you're really into like that period, and just some interesting like game mechanics I haven't seen recently. So that's just my extra plug. I wanted to get for a game that's taken too much of my life.
Remember to mention it at the end when we do plugs.
I will.
Are they sponsoring the podcast? They might be now.
We'll see.
I'm terrible at video games, dude.
Why?
I don't know what it is because I played them as a teenager. So I'm in my early or perhaps mid 30s, depending on your definition. And so I had PS2. I came of age with PS2, and I had the wrestling video games. Those were big. And yeah, it was just terrible. Oh, and the beginning where I dropped out was like Call of Duty, like Halo and Call of Duty. I couldn't, like, I'd be on people's teams, and it's funny because like I had the experience growing up as being picked last in gym class. And people liked me. I was like liked in school, but they're like, I
can relate to this so heavy.
He's not coordinated. He can't see.
I had that thing too, where you're like, it's fine. He's a nice guy, but he can't play basketball. Look at him. He's a little like that.
Which is it's even worse, dude, because I would have loved to just be like, for it to be like classic bullying. But it was like, no, Bobby, we like you, but you're too small and uncoordinated and blind and have no depth perception.
Right.
You can't be on our team, dude.
You're facing reality, and that's more hurtful sometimes than unironic bullying.
Yeah, it's but similar thing, dude. Like people would be like, who's going to be on my fucking, I don't even know the terminology, like my COD team.
Your friends list, something like that, your party.
And same thing, I was picked last in that too. I don't know what it is. I have, and listeners already know this, I have a dog shit sense of direction, and I kind of can't see. I'm wearing contacts. So like those two things together make you bad at video games, I think.
That's fair. I mean, I don't have the vision, but when you say Halo and COD, that's when I jumped in. That's because my friend had Halo, and I went to his house one day, and I was like, this is Halo 3. And I was like blown away by it. It got to the point where I played Halo so much, I played like local competitive. So I like go to like the GameStop and like try to win the tournament.
Oh, really?
Things like that.
Okay.
My gamer tag was Bip Bop Boom, if you guys remember. If you look that up somewhere, it exists. But I played and I loved it thoroughly. Never stuck with it competitively, but that got me into shooters. That got me into eventually Counter-Strike. And then as I got older, I started to just be more like strategy and like history and civilization type games.
That's when you get older. You're like, okay, enough with the shoot 'em ups. Let's think about, do I have enough corn to take my horses and in the cavalry to the next station?
And now I need a trade for it. And oh my God. But like I still play some tight tactical like shooters, but it's definitely at a much lower level than I feel like I was in college and things like that.
Now, when you're playing video games, whether it's a strategy or a first-person shooter, are you an emotional video game player?
Emotional, let's see, like, do I yell at the screen?
Do you yell at the screen?
No, I'm very like, let come as it goes. I try to be more analytical and like calm. It will take like 2 things will get to me that will make me feel like angered. And that is just one, blatant cheating. Like no holds barred. Like I'm using an aimbot. I'm using wall hacks. I am calling you the N-word. I am just like, it is just worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, there's not enough report buttons for this one guy. I'm like, okay, it's over. Like I get mad at that. And then the second thing is where the game does have like an issue or trouble or glitch. And there's no way for me to get around it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like especially with newer games, like I'll download it, and something will be working, and it won't let me progress to the next like stage or mission or whatever it is. And I'll be like, you know what? Like I'm expecting a product that works, and I still have that older software mentality of I bought the thing. Shouldn't the thing work fully?
Yeah.
But I guess in the modern day, that's not 100% true as it comes.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I'm almost jealous that you have this passion that's unrelated to comedy. Because I'm a history buff, but now I've married the 2 things together.
Right.
Something happened in the pandemic where all of a sudden all I wanted to talk about was the Civil War, and then that's actually when I started. Like I read the Battle Cry Freedom, which is like, I don't know if you've read it. I think you would love it. It's super long, but it covers like everything. I think it's one of the few books, like I feel like after you read cover to cover, you have like a firm understanding of the conflict, probably more than your average person.
Yeah, my amount of literature I've read has been not limited. Like there's been some substantial books. Like I read Team of Rivals,
which
is unbelievably thick book, like 600, 700 page
Damn,
book.
She thick
with
the
like
book that is.
five C's or 15 C's, 1 C for chapter, but it is a grind to get through it, but it's like very focused. It's on like focusing on Abraham Lincoln's cabinet in the tail end of the Civil War, which is like 3 levels of thing to focus on.
Yeah.
But the point of the book being, Lincoln assembled his team of rivals, people who he didn't 100% agree with on everything, but still created probably one of the most productive cabinets in U.S. history and in, the history of world governments. And it's a good lesson to learn is you should try and surround yourself with those who don't think like you, who are cordial in the sense that you will work along with you, but not in the sense of they'll just be yes men.
It's crazy to think that he started that tradition of like all the people you beat in the primary in your cabinet, because we're so used to that now. But yeah, like all the presidents previous to him were like, what if everybody in my cabinet thinks exactly like me? And yeah, how could that not lead to disaster? You know what the book made me appreciate was Seward. I knew nothing about Seward.
Yeah.
And I have a special place in my heart for Seward because he's a 5'6" redhead from the Hudson Valley.
So he's you incarnate.
He's me, dude. And he was like supposed to win the Republican primary. Like Lincoln beat him, a combination of like good luck and also like a modern sense of campaigning. Like he didn't go himself because that was still like uncouth to campaign for yourself, but he sent like all of his boys. And Salmon Chase is like a fucking, if you if the book makes you hate one person, it's Salmon Chase, because he was like, well, I'm actually supposed to be president, and I'm not, and he lost his home state even.
Wow.
Yeah, he was so embarrassed.
That's hater energy to really keep up after seeing that.
And you could argue that Lincoln put him on the Supreme Court just to get rid of him. Because he's like, I hate this fucking guy so much.
Yeah, let's give him the appointment where he'll be here for life.
Yeah.
You know?
Get out of here, fish name. How can you take someone seriously when they're named after a fish?
I mean, I have a weird name too. Brooks isn't exactly the best first name.
Brooks, I like Brooks as a first name. And Tawil, are you related to Tawil from South Park?
I wish I was. He would hook me up so good with nice little weed and maybe a couple other drugs and probably heroin. But so I'll get into my first name is Brooks. So to give some background, I am a Syrian Jew, and you'll notice other Jews tend to name their like children after the grandparents. Ashkenaz Jews usually wait till the death of the grandparent to do so. But Syrian Jews and other Sephardic Jews will name them even if they're alive. So
Okay.
here's the problem is my grandfather's name was Sam. And my parents married later and stuff like that. So by the time I was born, I would have been the fourth Sam in the family, which heck at that point, you know, like we don't need another one. But my grandfather had a nickname, Brooks, Sam Brooks Antony.
Okay.
And he acquired that nickname for his penchant for shopping at stores such as Brooks Brothers, being a very sharply dressed man. People, you know, identified him, nicknamed him Brooks. So my mom was like, hey, why don't we just name our son Brooks? Great way to honor my grandfather and at the same time be original and unique. I've grown to love the name. It was definitely something growing up where it's like, no one else has this name.
Yeah.
And to this day, like I've met one person who has had the first name Brooks. I know they exist. Like you look at comedians like Brooks Wheelan, there's like Brooks Koepka, the golfer, there's Brooks Robinson, baseball player, like all these like people exist, but I've never met them. I've met one Brooks. So that's like the first name origin. And then the last name is, I tell people, and most of my family tells people it's pronounced Tawil, which, you know, it's an Arabic last name, Syrian. And people don't really speak Arabic well in America. So the real way to say it is Tawil, like a little bit of the back of the throat.
Yeah, there's no way people are saying that.
No, so I'm like, it's a Tawil. It's Tawil. And it's Arabic name. And when you translate Tawil from Arabic into English, it means tall.
Oh, no.
I know.
So for those just listening, Brooks is a fellow short, handsome man, not unlike your host.
Exactly. I'm a strong 5'4".
Hell yeah, dude.
It is on my license. You can see it, verify it yourself. I will not stand up because you can only imagine the sheer size of me breaking out of the frame of camera for that one.
Yes, that's a nice little, at some point someone must have been tall then.
You know, I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I like to think he was a strong 5'6" back then, which today is like 6'3", I bet. I have nothing to back that up, by the way.
Did you watch Napoleon?
I did. Okay. I thoroughly did enjoy the movie. It's my kind of movie. You know, a lot of dudes talking, a lot of like tension. I didn't really like Napoleon as a person. I feel like that's kind of the point is you're not supposed to like Napoleon, but the movie was too long, 2 hours and like 40 plus minutes. Like I have this joke where I say like, I watched a movie and I had a Diet Coke right before it. And not going to the bathroom, that was my battle of Waterloo. It was unbelievable. Like I enjoyed the movie, but by the end I ran to the bathroom before I even talked to my friend who I was with. And then we talked about it after.
Yeah.
Movies got to control their lengths, in my opinion. Even if it's a fantastic one, you have an intermission or something in the middle. That would be great to bring back a mid-movie intermission. I would do a 4-hour movie if it came with intermission.
Yeah,
like once or twice in the middle of that. And
and some movies need to be as long as they are, but I feel like it's almost a trend where it's like you almost get like brownie points for having a long movie. And I've watched Napoleon sort of felt like that where I'm like, this could have been a shorter movie.
Yeah.
They really wanted to hit the 2.5 hour mark. But apparently there's a 4-hour director's cut version that's going to come out.
And I'm going to watch that from the comfiness of my couch.
There you go.
In close proximity of my bathroom with the pause button active. You know, like that's a way I'm comfortable watching 4 hours of movie.
100%. Yeah. And, so we started talking about Napoleon because we're both short, handsome men, and he was one. And By the way, I say short, handsome man because short king. I'm American. I'm not into the
monarchism. We got rid of that.
Yeah, we got rid of the king. Much like Washington, I didn't depose a king to become one myself.
God bless you, Bobby. That is such an honorable American thing to say. I, for now on, will never refer to myself as a short king.
Hell yeah.
What should I go for? Short president though? Short majority leader. That might be. I feel minority leader. I'll be short minority leader.
Yes.
I feel like we could go for that.
Let's not get crazy. They're not going to make us majority leaders.
Yeah, come on. Let's get some good expectations.
Probably maybe short daddy. I've been playing around with that a little bit.
You know what? That can get a little off the line to the wrong person. But hey, if you want to go around calling people daddy, I'm not going to stop you.
SD for short. So what I find, because I like misconceptions in history are fun. And I've always heard, okay, Napoleon was short. And then the response to that would be like, actually, he wasn't really short. So I looked into it. And apparently we don't know how tall he was. It's just information that was never solidified. So he may have been as tall as 5'7", which of course was above average height for the time, but it's still short for a general, or as small as 5'2". And my thing is, I think it's closer to the latter. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like he kept his height ambiguous for that very reason. I feel like if he was a regular guy, he would be like, no, tell everybody I'm a regular size guy.
Yeah, he wants to be at least like average or something. I agree with you. Also, that range is significant enough because of the times of the day. Like, you can't verify it easily. You see a guy on his horse all the way over there. I don't know how tall he is, 5'8".
Yeah.
Doesn't mean much to me unless you measured up next to him, but that doesn't happen.
They didn't have IMBD back then.
IMDb.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I struggle with acronyms. I have a slight form of dyslexia, I think. Yeah. So what I learned from you just now, because I thought the Jewish tradition, the Ashkenazi Jewish tradition of not naming someone after someone that's alive was a Jewish tradition in general. But that's not true.
Like many things, if you have two Jews in a room, there's three opinions about Judaism, right? It's just every kind of like ethnic background and origin will have their own sort of customs. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different, sometimes they're radically different. But overall, like there's still that genuine shared practice. So a great example is the naming thing.
Now, Brooks, have you heard about the Jews for Jesus?
I have heard of the Jews for Jesus.
It's actually why I asked you to come here today.
Oh, no.
I just pull out a book.
I have to go.
I have a friend of mine who's Jewish. And he used to be Orthodox as well. So as you're aware, when you're an Orthodox Jew, you're quote unquote visibly Jewish. Like everybody knows.
Right.
You know what I mean? And apparently there was like someone in the neighborhood or whatever was like, hey, I'm also Jewish. And he was like, okay, fine. And then like through building this rapport every day was like, yeah, the sect I'm from is actually, it's interesting. It's called Jews for Jesus. And which is so unbelievable.
Very big reveal.
Yeah, he's like, sounds like Christianity to me. He's like, a lot of people think that, but actually.
And then he shut the door on it at that point.
Dude, it's wild.
They got to rebrand. They can't go with Jews for Jesus. They got to like do it something like, just call it like the Pentecostal Jews or something. You know?
Sneaking it in a little
like
bit.
a 4-syllable word, and then you shove it behind like a paywall or something, and you're fine. Easy marketing.
And you know what's the first clue that Jews for Jesus is in a Jewish sect is that it has Jesus in the name. But the second clue is proselytizing. So Jews don't proselytize.
No, we
Jews
don't.
are like, we're having a nice time. You guys do whatever you want.
Yeah, we're like, we're good. The club is big as it is. You know, we don't take much more. It's actually like a funny practice to explain to people because, you know, there's little differences as well, as I mentioned before. But the key is you're supposed to ask a rabbi, hey, I want to convert. And the rabbi is obligated to deny you at least 3 times.
Damn.
Like they
Much
have
like
to.
Peter denied Jesus. Go ahead.
You got me coughing. But yes, so he's supposed to deny you 3 times. He could keep on going. Like he could be going for years until a rabbi would say, you know what, fine. We'll go through the conversion process. And it's not like, oh, that's like the easy part. Because now you have to study. Now you have to get your degree in Judaism, basically. So you have to learn Torah. You have to go to these classes. You have to follow up. You have to get these tests done. And it takes, again, a multi-year process from that point. I have a friend, she married a Jewish guy and she went through the process of converting. It takes like 2-3 years for pretty much most sects of Judaism to do the conversion. By the end of it, you ideally are not only a practicing Jew, but even more well practiced than like a normal Jew. So you would be able to go through that. And then you basically take one last exam. The rabbi says some blessings. They give you a certificate. And you say like, hey, I'm Jewish now. There's a lot of, people who have different ways of going about it, but that's basically the process if you lay it out.
Meanwhile, Catholic, let's put some water on that head.
Yeah, you could do it like at the beach. Like it's fine.
And try to remember not to eat meat on Fridays during Lent, but it's okay if you forget.
Hey, billion people, 17 million. Yeah. Big difference. Why? Just explained right in front of us.
So you grew up Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah, I would describe it with the term modern Orthodox.
Okay.
So like many things, again, two Jews, three opinions. Orthodox Judaism is like one of the big three. There's Reform, Conservative, Orthodox. And then within Orthodox, there's also little bits and pieces within that. So you have a large majority or a good amount is modern Orthodox, where they're observant, they eat kosher, they follow the Sabbath, things like that. But, they'll sort of dress like a typical American, or they may wear a kippah, but they're really more or less culturally identifying with their country that they're living in. For America, it's like, you'll see him walk around the street. He might be wearing a collared shirt. He might not be. He might be wearing a yarmulke. But you'll ask him, hey, what'd you have for dinner today? And he won't tell you a cheeseburger,
Okay.
And they'll go to ship. Like, that's how I grew up, right? So I had access to the internet. I did all these regular American things. But then there's like the other sects within that. There's Jews like here in South Williamsburg, like Hasidic Jews. Those are more, the Yiddish term is frum. That's like they're more observant. They dress like how their ancestors did in Eastern Europe with the trench coats, the black and the white, the hats.
As one comic put it, much like Abraham Lincoln.
Much like Abraham Lincoln. One comic has put it like that. But yeah, they dress like that, and they a lot of them speak Yiddish in the local communities because that's what they spoke back in Eastern Europe. And then there's like other sects too. There's Haredi. There's other named ones as well. But like, it's much more than just, hey, you're Orthodox. You gotta, if you want to dig deeper, there's a lot more to find differences.
It really is fascinating, like, because they're both Jews, but just there's so many differences. My friend Mark Henley, so his mom's Jewish, and he celebrates Hanukkah and Passover. And he always jokes, he's like, and I'm a Jew just like the Haredi Jew you just described is. We're in the same club.
Right.
It's all he thinks about. And for me, it's my mom.
Well, it's a not so big club, and you're probably not in it. So that's the mentality I take. And there's a lot of beautiful things. I really enjoy it. It's something I make a big part of my identity on stage as well. But to also, like, there's so much and so many things that I don't know and understand about the different parts of Judaism as well.
So you grew up modern Orthodox, but at some point you transitioned?
I mean,
I said that like you're trans.
I'm Brooke now, so it's nice to meet you. But I still call myself modern Orthodox. I'm modern Orthodox. I'm just not good at it.
Okay. You're like, I'm more modern Orthodox, but also I'm chill.
Yeah. Chill modern Orthodox.
That's it's a new one.
CMO.
Yeah. Yeah. So why would you say you're bad at it?
I mean, I'm not super observant at certain things. I'll use my phone on a Saturday. I'll sample some like non-kosher cheese dishes and things like that. But when it comes to like, when I go home, I don't drive on the Sabbath. I go to synagogue. Like I have some observation to me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds more like, especially with the observance of the Sabbath, which for you is on a Saturday. I don't know why that sounded like it's not right, but
it should be Sunday.
But so it seems more like you're following like the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law.
Yeah. No. Like sometimes I am following the letter of the law.
Okay.
It's more of a vibe.
A vibe, yeah. But you're probably still, you're thinking about how it's the Sabbath.
Yeah. And then that's also something I like wrestle with sometimes is how observant do I want to be? How observant can I be? What is can, what is want, what is this, what is that? Also mixing comedy into the whole thing. Like imagine Friday night, you can't do comedy. It's a big thing for a lot of people. So
It's to me, I like the idea of a Sabbath, and for Jews it's on Saturday, for Christians it's on Sunday, and I think it's mostly, I mean, the rules are different, but like the idea is the same, which is like this is a day in the week where you're supposed to relax,
Right.
and think about God,
right.
which to me, doing both of those things doesn't sound. That seems contradictory.
That's not relaxing. That's Jewish relaxing. So I'm thinking about God all the time.
Yeah, and it starts on Friday night.
Correct.
Friday night, and so sundown Friday till sundown Saturday, and then sundown Saturday it's over. So you could do stuff. You could push buttons. And
Exactly. The way I explain it, it makes it sound like, maybe some anti-Semites have a little bit of this like funny idea about it. So maybe they're kind of right because we tell people, oh, the days they start at night.
Yeah.
And to explain that makes no sense to people.
Yeah.
But true, like Judaism, the day starts at the conclusion of the sunrise of sunset.
Okay.
So we say, okay, the Sabbath starts in the time just before then, and it goes until the next cycle when the next night starts. It's a weird thing to get used to when you're not in the world, but for me, it's very natural to think, yeah, the day's over and the next one has begun. Time to go to sleep.
Yeah. So would you say you're a morning person or a night person?
It's a great question. Way to bring that one up there. I am a night person now. I grew up as a heavy morning person.
Okay.
For various reasons, one of which being back to Judaism. I went to a Jewish day school yeshiva, which meant that, kindergarten through high school, I'd be getting up 6:30, getting, in the bus or in my mom's car, going to school yeshiva, 7:30 prayers for an hour every day. If you were late, you got lunch detention. Very bad. If you're late, you didn't get bagels for breakfast. Very, very strict. And then we'd go for school until 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Damn.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So you basically had to be a morning person.
Yeah. I was basically trained to be a morning person. I thought I would take that through the rest of my life. I was like, cool, I'm going to be a morning person. This will be great. I'll go to college. I'll go to the gym at 6 a.m. I'll be that guy. I'm going to be like getting big. I'll be like, all right, 8 a.m. My day is already done or something like that. But then as I had more freedom, I realized my body does not work like this. I enjoy sleeping through the sunrise. I enjoy having that time for myself. And then I really start to turn on in that noon, 1, 2 p.m. That's when I get the most work done. So by trade, I'm a software engineer. So I'll do my best work like right before lunch / right after lunch into the mid-afternoon, which is unfortunate because when you work software engineering, there's a lot of people on the West Coast that they're not up yet. So the morning tends to be where it's most available to work. But then the afternoon is a place where that's where the meetings happen, which aren't the most productive sometimes. But I've always tried to wrestle that. I've made my advances to make that happen. But for comedy's sake, it comes down to 4, 5, 6 p.m. I'm like, okay, I'll leave. And I'm like, I have so much energy. I'm like, yeah, socialize, let's go. This is my time, blah, blah. And it'll be like midnight. I'm like, all right, I'll stay out for another hour. I'll get home 2, 3 a.m., whatever. And I'll be like, great, this is the time schedule that works for me. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to be up 8 a.m. the next day and start, striking the hammer, getting things done. But it's rough. Sometimes it's really rough.
The anxiety I feel when I am up late out of necessity, and I know that I have to wake up early, because some people function really well. Some people are like, yeah, fuck it, 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, I'm fine. I wake up, I always have like I wake up with a headache if I wake up too early.
I'm with you, but also remember the person that does only sleep 4, 5, 6 hours. It's a little bit like taking a mortgage on some years down the road.
They're going to die.
You didn't hear me say that. That was Bobby. But if you're only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, you should try to get a little bit more because
it's not enough.
It's not enough. I think there's a good amount of research that shows like 8 hours of sleep is something that's beneficial. It helps you live longer. It helps you live with less stress. Like it's very obvious you should be getting that sleep. That said, I try and get that, and sometimes I do not, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But I wish, like, my dream would be to be doing comedy all night, waking up at 11 a.m., getting a bagel or something, and just having that cycle of time to myself. The night is where I thrive. The night is where I enjoy things. And not just comedy too. Like I like going out for, Friday night dinners, and I'll stay late and we'll talk and we'll play games. We'll play Settlers or something. And that's when I enjoy being out and active and being myself.
Yeah. We've talked about it on the podcast before, that like, at night is where you could build rapport with people. Like the later it is, it's something about like, this is the after hours, and you don't necessarily, I don't drink, so you don't need alcohol for it.
No, you definitely do not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the mentality of we're in this together.
Yeah.
Especially when you're out in New York City, it's like, it's 1 a.m., but we're gonna work with the trains. We're gonna do it. Like we're in this together, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then you also say goodbye and you have to go on your own train. But still there's this sharedness of the night that comes. Like I don't feel that camaraderie at an office at 12 noon, like that's like, I'm just working. I'm not in it together. I'm like, I can see the sun.
And for the most part, the people that you're hanging out with at night are the people you chose to hang out with. Whereas like, in other situations.
Yeah. You did accept that job offer, but you didn't really know everything.
Oh my God. I've had some fucking awful coworkers.
Oh
dude.
boy. Let me tell you.
Have you had an awful coworker?
I think I've had good coworkers. I've had some weird ones who are good, but weird.
Good, but weird. Okay.
One of my old managers he was very good. He's a very good manager. He taught me well. He would look out for us. He'd plan projects well. Things great. But he would every day drink at least 2 Diet Cokes, like the bigger, like these things. Not like the 2-liter, but like the next level down.
To like 18, because the regular bottle is 12 ounces.
I think it's the 12.
So 16 or 18. So 32. He's drinking a liter of Coke.
Probably.
Shout out Farva.
Diet Coke.
Okay.
So not all the sugar, but like the caffeine and the all the carcinogens and stuff like that.
Yeah. You know what? I love Diet Coke though. They could tell me Diet Coke is mostly cum, and I'm like, well, I'm a little cum dumpster. You gotta give me more Diet Coke. Actually, I've been good about the caffeine lately.
That's good.
Yeah, I've been doing a big mug in the morning, but that's it. And then I ride out the afternoon.
Don't you get like a rush of anxiety by taking so much at once? Because that's what happens to me.
No, I wake up excited for the coffee, and I do. I have this whole routine that the listeners have heard of before, but I don't drink the coffee right away. I go outside to get my 5 minutes of sunlight. I pee. I weigh myself. I drink water. And then I make the coffee, and I wait for while the coffee is cooling. I brush my teeth and I take a shower. And as my shower. So this whole thing of you don't want to get out of the shower, but I'm like, what's waiting for me? That hot cup of black coffee. I know that it sounds like, wow, how do you get dopamine from this? But that's how I wake up in the morning. I'm like, in about 45 minutes, I'm going to be drinking a cup of coffee.
I wish I had that mentality around coffee, because for me, it is
it's addict behavior.
Yeah, that is addict behavior. For me, I view it purely as like a drug. Like it's something I should be prescribed to take, where it's something that I need to accomplish a goal and nothing more.
Okay.
So a great example, college, I did engineering, computer engineering, very tough subjects, really enjoyed it, but there would be those days where it's like, all right, you have the final tomorrow and you got to study, Brooks, because you spent too much time partying and the other final was rough. So you're like, great, it's 1 a.m. I'm in the basement of Alexander Library on College Ave campus. By God, you need to stay up. So I'm like, all right, I get the coffee, I down it, I take it shot wise, and I just go. But never do I wake up in my day and think like, you know what? I'm just going to get my nice cup of Joe and relax.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It is not relaxing. I take it and I am going. I'm a little jittery. I feel I take too much. I'm anxious. I'm like, I got to go.
Oh, so I do, because I've been in the situation where if I drink too much coffee, I'll 100% start getting anxious. I'll get the anxiety, and it's one of those things. It's like, well, fuck. I'm too tired to do the activity, or I'm like a little anxious. And like the latter is the lesser two of evils, I suppose. But I was drinking. I remember peak lockdown during the pandemic, I tweeted something like, why am I drinking coffee? Because I would just wake up in the morning and still drink coffee, and then it'd be raining outside. I couldn't even go on my COVID walk. I'd be like, all right, time to watch the 3rd season of Cheers. But I'm wide awake. I'm ready to watch
wired for Cheers.
It is, you know what? I'm straight up addicted to caffeine though. So if for whatever reason I don't get a cup of coffee in the morning, I do start to feel physically ill. And in terms of like, not only a fatigue, but a pretty bad headache. And I've been like in travel situations with people where they're like, don't worry, we'll get coffee. I'm like, the clock is running.
Right.
I remember one time I took I forget why, but I just wasn't near coffee, and I took an Advil in anticipation just to be like,
of the headache.
Yeah.
Was this like something you learned on your own, or is this something inherited that you feel like from family and stuff like that?
So yeah, both my parents are coffee drinkers. They're both coffee early in the morning, like within an hour of waking, like wouldn't go a day without drinking coffee. I'm fascinated by people so there's people like me that need it like every day, and there's people like you that like when I need it, and then there's people who are like, oh, that'd be nice every once in a while, a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's like sparingly doing heroin to me. It's like, oh, I guess this vein, I can't remember the last time I did it. It's the left vein or the right vein.
I just think of a little heroin trip today.
I had a conversation with, we talked about him off mic, but Ryan Irwin, who is a former Mormon, grew up in the Mormon church, and you can't drink coffee in Mormonism.
Right.
Which is so very, because that's a level of like, yeah, I get caffeine's a drug. I mean, we've just been talking about how much of it is a drug. So I guess they have a point.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, that is so funny that you can't drink coffee. And apparently his friend's mother, who is also Mormon, would get a McCafe at McDonald's every day because she just thought it wasn't coffee.
No.
Yeah. Which I feel like,
no.
Who knows? I feel like she got caught and she's like, oh, this is coffee?
I would support her in that one. I'd be like, no, she didn't know.
It's fine if you don't know.
She's having the devil's juice. It's fine. It's fine.
My dad described going to Catholic school because
he needs to talk about the trauma or
he had to, oh, dude, speaking of trauma, dude, he had so it was back because I went to Catholic school too, but new Catholic school, we didn't even have nuns. They were all lay teachers. There was one nun, but she didn't even wear the clothes.
Oh,
she just wore regular clothes.
You had to pay for that? That sounds like a rip off to me, honestly.
But when my dad, because my dad, he was born in 1957, so he went to he started to go to Catholic school before the Second Vatican Council. Second Vatican Council, Brooks. So see, this is an interfaith dialogue.
We're learning, right?
Yeah. Second Vatican Council was in sometime in the 1960s, and they were like, "We're losing people."
Oh.
And how do we retain people? So they did things. They're like, the priest faces the congregation instead of having his back to you.
That's when they did that. Okay.
And now the mass is in English or whatever language the country speaks, not Latin. Which, yeah, like that should have been done sooner. Like you can't, the guy's not looking at you and you can't understand what he's saying. That's wild. And I've never. That's because like you meet Jews and they'll be like, I speak a little bit of Hebrew. They're either fluent in Hebrew or like I know some of it, but I've never met a Catholic that's like, oh yeah, I know some Latin. We fucking drop that shit as soon as what's funny though, the Second Vatican Council, they're like, no more Latin, don't worry, huh? We're gonna get some new music. No abortion, no gay people still. We thought about it. Sorry, you guys.
It's on the table. Maybe next time. Next time.
You know what? So and all religions operate this way, but there's going to be a time where the Catholic Church is like, oh no, you could be gay. And then they're going to act as if they were always cool. Catholics get very condescending in relationship to other Christian denominations. So I remember going to Catholic school and the Catholic teachers would be like, yes, we believe in evolution. It is totally, Adam and Eve is not a literal story, but it explains blah, blah, blah. But I'd be like, we didn't always feel this way, though. No. Well, we put Galileo in prison.
That did happen.
For saying, hey, I think the sun actually doesn't work the way you guys think it. And they're like, we have to never let him leave his house again.
House arrest immediately, ankle bracelet, the things that he said. But my impression of the Catholic Church is they're willing to make these changes for the sake of, population numbers. Whereas if I ever walk into synagogue and say, hey guys, I don't really understand every word in Hebrew. Do you think maybe I a little bit of English in here? They would look at me like I'm insane. Like what? Like we've been doing it like this forever. What do you mean? Change what? It's fine. You can learn it. And then there's other sects of Judaism that are like, changing everything. And to me, it's such a radical difference that I'm like, I don't even recognize what's going on. Like I've seen, first off, the fact that I can see videos of the service is like, okay, well, obviously this wasn't a Friday night or Saturday, but there's like videos of like Reformed services and they have instruments and they have singing and it's in English. And I'm like, I don't recognize this as like a prayer that I would feel like I'm getting something out of. But they can also teach everyone has their own different way of worshiping. But, that happens in Judaism too, where it's like some people just come together and because there's no quote unquote central authority, there's no Pope of Judaism, kind of these different sects kind of naturally, organically form around ideas and time periods and things like that.
Yeah, it's almost like if you are high in openness to experience, you might be interested in reform. But if you're more like if you're more traditionalist, I guess you're like, well, let's just do it the way my dad did it and my grandpa did it.
And there is some beauty, I think, to both sides. One of the most beautiful things I find about Orthodox parts of Judaism is the attention to minutia. And it sounds like it shouldn't be something that's beautiful, but when you look at the texts and the teachings and the learnings brought about just to come up with the most basic of traditions and laws. If you look at something like, the Gemara, the Tanakh, which is the interpretations of the Torah through the lens of rabbis and trying to find and reach conclusions, discussions, sometimes they reach it, sometimes they don't. But to see that play out in front of your eyes and to read their notes and to go through their cross references, it's very legal sounding because it is. To see that has its own beauty to it. Where it's like, I'm not just doing this because some guy told me. I knew this because this guy thought that this guy said this thing and then when this thing is that and then blah, blah, blah. And then you could think, oh, that's why. The fact I can trace some of that down for a lot of things we do is in that sense beautiful. Now, have I done that tracing myself all the time? No, I don't have that much time on my hands, but that's for the guy who sits in yeshiva all day, that he'll do it. I'll just listen to that guy and then I'll find the beauty from him.
Well, it's like anything else. It's like why we trust experts in whatever field, because it's like, well, they've dedicated their life to this and I trust them. Right. So once you have that level of trust, then you're like, I'll listen to them.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend to be like I know everything, but it's best when someone who does know the thing can tell me or at least explain it to me.
And when I went to Catholic school, there was very much like this thing of, we welcome questions because we could debate when we could, you should wonder why it is that we do, but there was a limit.
Right.
There was a limit. And because I went from being very Catholic to very atheist in high school. So I knew a lot of the arguments, and I feel bad now, but I feel like I even thought about it a little more than some of the, because I'd be like, what about Occam's razor? And I'd watch the religion teacher be like, I don't know what that is. And of course, not necessary. I could have just let this nice lady like teach her class. I didn't have to be like
Bobby, this is math. I don't know. Occam's razor, I'm a Gillette person, okay?
Oh, so I'm sorry. My dad's story. So he went to old Catholic school, nuns, rulers, bruising the knuckles, that whole thing. And two stories stick in my mind. One is that one involves his friend. His friend, this is like in grammar school, brought in a Playboy magazine.
Ooh.
And this was so long ago that the women weren't even naked. They were like, these are women in bikinis. Oh. And my dad said that like when his friend got caught with that Playboy, the nuns literally brought him outside and it was like WWE, like more nuns came in for support.
No.
Yeah. I'm like, with a closed fist, Dad? He was like, with a closed fist. That's what a Playboy will get you.
No.
And I'm sure a lot of that was, they're mostly closeted lesbians themselves. So there were probably a bunch of emotions seeing that Playboy magazine.
Give me that also. I want to confiscate this. Take it to my office.
And the second story involves my dad, and I love this story. So they went to JFK's gravesite. This is like so JFK was 63, right? So this
before
was
his head did that.
Yeah, before his head just did that. But so JFK's first Catholic president, and of course he was like one of the youngest presidents. So there was, I think, this idea in Catholic communities, they were like, one of our kids got killed, basically. And so my dad, being a little boy, not understanding all of that, they go to the Kennedy gravesite, and the nun goes, there's an eternal flame at the Kennedy gravesite. Does anybody know why? To which my dad couldn't help himself, responded, because he was afraid of the dark. And I was like, did you get hit? And he was like, I got hit a lot. I think there was a difference, but there was the obligatory put your knuckles out and we'll hit you with the rulers. And then there was, you just made fun of JFK. And the latter is a passionate beating.
There is force behind those fists. Wow. My impression too is JFK is seen as like, the second saint of Catholicism to American Catholics for sure.
Oh, 100%. Him and Bobby.
100%,
Bobby. Dude.
Now JFK Jr. on the other hand, he is a saint too, a different kind of American.
Dude, it's so funny. I heard so I listen to Rogan sometimes, and Joe Rogan loves RFK Jr. and he in referring to RFK Jr. said the words RFK Senior, which I think is so fucking funny. It's like, the presidential candidate that has some pretty cool ideas. His dad was actually important too.
Anyways, let's look at how jacked RFK Jr. is.
Yeah, he is jacked, dude.
I'll give him the props. Like, he goes to the gym, he works out. Like, he's got the bod. I don't want to deny him that. But like, also, you never know what he's putting into the body.
And he's definitely on something, dude.
He's got to be geared up,
Yeah, which is fine. If you want to be president, you can be geared up.
I'm fine if you're open about being geared and on the campaign trail. Like, let me know that it's not natty.
Yeah.
At a rally, let me know it's not a natty rally, and I'm fine with it.
Dude, yeah. The now the representative from the non-natty party against the natty party. Yeah. Everyone's like, do you even lift, bro? It's a very funny person to be. Is someone that clearly is on steroids and was like, no, I do fasting. And I pull-ups.
Right.
Pull-ups are very important.
A lot of pull-ups.
Chicken with broccoli.
I eat some liver sometimes. Yeah. And then I spend,
that one where the Liver King, that was like comically. But I'm like, I guess there's a certain segment of like young kids that just don't have the information.
It's a lot of it is that, right? It's just they're being thrown quick 30-second clips of guy just doing thing and saying thing, and you don't have no choice but to believe thing. But at the same time, it's also just like entertaining. Yeah. Like, you sit down and you watch it and you're like, this man is insane. I can't look away. Yeah. And then finally, it's also just like, what else do they know? They don't know anything. So it's like, I just lift thing and I eat a lot. And then also like, I become bigger and stronger, but they don't realize the other things that go into a healthy diet or into exercising or just like conditioning yourself.
I feel lucky that I had what I think is a healthy fear of injury at the gym. So when I started, I would do like every exercise like 3 or 4 sets, but I would literally, even though it feels silly, I would start at 10 pounds, like for everything.
I think that's so important though. Yeah. It's important to make sure you're warmed up, that you know the motions, even if you've done it a million times. It's the time where you don't warm up. That's when things go wrong. Yeah.
And even now, I think this is a early or perhaps mid-30s situation, Brooke, is that sometimes my lower back reminds me that it's there. Yeah. And I think I'm doing all the exercises right, but I think at a certain point, my lower back doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. I've not reached that point yet. I'm only 26. So like, I'll get there one day, but I think the first thing that I'll give out is probably my knees. I use them a lot. I squat a lot, and then I also ski and do things like that. So they're going to be first out, especially if I do any more like running or things of that nature.
I am terrified of skiing. Terrified is a strong word.
You never been?
I've been skiing.
Okay.
But I never go beyond
Bunny Hill?
Yeah, I did. So there's, I think, what's there? Blue, green, and black, right?
Yeah, there's a couple other levels sometimes.
So blue is fine. I'll have a nice time on blue. I went on a skiing trip with my girlfriend at the time, and she'll go. She doesn't go on the black, but she'll go on like the intermediate green level,
right?
And we'll, dude, a little bit emasculating, to be honest with you, 'cause she was like whipping down the hill, and I was like, French fry pizza, French fry pizza.
And that's out northeast somewhere, or
the Catskills.
Oh, beautiful, yeah. But you're not you're talking to an expert here. I've been skiing since I was like 3 years old, and I've done every level. I've done off piste, like backcountry. I did once cross country. That was hell on earth doing cross country. That's one where you're basically just walking and it's like a hike. And I was like, oh, I should try it one time. And I was out in Colorado. I was with my family. I was like, let's take the day. Let's do some cross country. Like, it was like running a marathon in the snow. It's just terrible. I just kept like going and going. It's like, how long do you have? Oh, just another like few miles. I'm like,
any sport that could also be a punishment for a prisoner is not going to be fun.
I agree. But what is fun? Throwing yourself down a mountain. That is unbelievably fun. And I thoroughly enjoy like the terrain skiing and the things where it's like you kind of chart your own path.
I would never under any circumstances go off a jump.
Really?
This place I went to, even on the Bunny Hill, they had like little things. And I was like,
so you're definitely not a terrain park kind of person.
I have this thing about my joints. Like I've never been on crutches. It seems not fun. You know what I mean? So I like anytime like I'm speed walking in New York for whatever reason and I almost roll my ankle, it ruins my day.
Right.
Cause I'm always like, when am I going to roll my ankle? The day is coming, you know? I don't know. And my back too. Yeah.
Lower back, you said, yeah.
Dude. I had muscle spasms in my lower back for a little while. And you know what's funny too? When you go to a doctor and their recommendation is a thing that you already do. Like they're like, you should stretch before you work out. And I was like, I do. And the doctor just was like, so that'll be $100.
He looks at his chart. It says, tell him to stretch more. Go if failed, go back to step one.
Dude, we talked about this off mic, but let me be a little brave. I have a hemorrhoid, folks. And
so brave.
At 33, my first hemorrhoid, and I told the very unenthusiastic Medicaid doctor about it, and who seemed to be annoyed that I even walked into his office. And I was like, "Thank you for teaching me how to take care of it. How do I prevent another one from happening?" And he's like, "You got to eat more fiber." And I eat fiber just fine. And not to body shame. I'm going to body shame. This doctor, I was annoyed that he was telling me how to eat.
So you guys got nothing out of that visit minus $100 from your wallet.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's finding a doctor in the city.
Yeah.
It's wild.
You'd think in a city of 8 million, there's got to be a doctor you like somewhere. I'm lucky. I found a decent one, but it's also like, I don't want to go to the doctor every year and it's someone I'd rather just like call up. Like I want a doctor I could call up and be like, hey doc,
yeah,
I have this thing going on. What should I do? He's just like, try this, this, or that. And if it works, call me back. Like I don't want to go to the doctor.
That sounds nice. And also whenever a commercial's like, talk to your doctor, I'm always like, I don't have a doctor. You know what I mean? Because I live my life in chaos. Like I always have new insurance. You know what I mean? So like, I think it's a very rare occasion in which I'm like, oh, this is my primary care doctor.
I feel comfortable talking to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can get behind that one. Well, one day I'll get the doctor I just want to call up, you know?
Yeah. Cool. So, we talked about Catholic school a little bit. So it's called Yeshiva.
Yes.
So other than the almost military style schedule that you adhere to, what else is going on at Yeshiva?
It's not that much different than I feel like the typical, American school experience. You learn your math, you learn your reading, you learn your languages. But then in addition to that, you also learn, Jewish subjects. You learn Torah, you learn Tanakh, which is the interpretations of it. you learn laws and you learn just general kind of philosophy. It's a well-rounded education. It taught me a lot. Taught me how I view work and myself. It taught me how I view my religion and my friends and things like that. But it's just like a long day too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot to pack in for a kid. Like I think typically for kids, it's like what public school, 2:30. And it's like, okay, then you have the extracurriculars in your day. Like I would be getting out of school and it would be dark. Not like the sunrise, sunset's coming. It's like, no, like you need to get a flashlight out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, the major difference between Catholic school and yeshiva is that every single person in yeshiva is Jewish.
Pretty much, yeah. That is like with 100% certainty, you will go to yeshiva only if you're Jewish.
Because I went to Catholic school. There were a few Protestants and even a few Jews that went there just because it was the only private school in the area.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting because we would have mass every so often, like for a special occasion. So mass is on Sunday. So obviously school isn't on Sunday. But like if Christmas was coming up, we would do a Christmas mass.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, everybody came. I don't know if it was mandatory or not, but I remember my friend Joel, who is Jewish, probably still is. He would go and he's like, yeah, I just like to, watch it. And anytime I have been to, I've never been to mosque, but I've been to a Protestant service and I've been to Jewish services.
Right.
And it is fascinating to like look at the similarities and the differences.
Yeah. I've been to a mosque too. I've not been to a service in a Catholic church. There's also some debate whether that's like, there's a debate in Judaism among some rabbis. Is Catholicism polytheistic or not?
Because it 100% is.
Yeah, because the idea of the Trinity to a lot of Jews is like, that's not good.
Well, the fact that in like Catholicism, it's like you could talk to Mary too.
I'm like,
you could talk to any of the apostles. I'm like, yeah, this very clearly replaced paganism in Rome.
I'm like, what? You okay? I let them do what they want. But I've been to a mosque and I've seen that, and like, it's nice to compare the differences. And one thing I loved, which was like, maybe I'll consider Islam, is there was a guy in the middle of the main section, and he was just like asleep. And I asked, I was like, you can sleep in here? He's like, yeah, sure, you can sleep, you can nap, you can eat. I'm like, sign me up, dude. Like, where is that signing bonus? Does it come with a pillow? Can I get in on this? But I've walked inside of churches though. I've been to Rome once and it was unbelievable. The sheer architecture and amount of art on display in a single location, the gold trimmings, the glass. It was just such a mesmerizing place to be in, and to imagine a religious service. It was like, okay, yeah, I see it. I see it. You got everything. You got everything in a nice little place. You have a nice service. One day I'd like to like observe one from like a nice cathedral, but I'm not sure how I could go about doing that.
Well, the next time I have to go to a wedding or a funeral, I'll bring you along, Brooks.
Oh, thank you.
You'll be my +1.
Hey,
+1 for the wedding. That'll cause some people will talk about that.
They will.
And you know what? +1 for the funeral.
Who's?
Listen, I have a lot of aunts and uncles that are approaching their 70s, and Irish people don't live that long. So you're invited. By the way, the wedding and the funeral, similar vibes.
No.
In both situations, we talk about how Jesus was murdered.
You really can't get over that, all right? You can't get over him being murdered.
So, folks, make sure to, check out because we're going to have you back for sure, and we'll see which religion you converted to.
Oh, I can't wait to give a surprise on the podcast.
But for now, dude, can you drop your socials and any plugs? Keep in mind that this episode is coming out not tonight, but next Sunday.
Sure. I mean, you can follow me on social media, especially things like Instagram, TikTok, at Brooks Tall. That is BROOKS. TALLALL. It is a play on my name, and I love it, and I will never change it. But you can find me on the socials. If you want to see me perform comedy, I perform regularly at St. Mark's Comedy Club, a bunch of other clubs in the city. I have a great show at the end on Christmas Day.
Hell yeah.
I am running a Jewish-Chinese themed comedy show at St. Mark's Comedy Club. It's going to be at the 8 p.m. slot. So if you're around on Christmas Day and you want to see some fun little Jewish comics, some Chinese comics, a nice little setting, come on down to St. Mark's. It's going to be a fun time. But you can follow me on the socials, Brooks Tall. And that's pretty much it, Bobby.
Hell yeah, Brooks. Thank you so much for coming. And remember, folks, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm just playing night owls. You know I love you.